What would you do if hidden cameras revealed your children's caregiver was doing something you never authorized, but it turned out to be the most important thing that ever happened to your family? This is the story of Marcus Ashford, a tech billionaire who installed surveillance to catch suspected abuse, only to discover his nanny was teaching his nonverbal twins something extraordinary that exposed years of his own neglect. Watch until the end to see the unbelievable moment that changed their lives forever, and ask yourself, how well do you really know the people caring for your children? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you would have done in Marcus's place. It's a cold January morning in 2023 at a Boston brownstone worth $18 million, where Marcus Ashford, 42, founder of a cloud security empire, sits in his home office reviewing footage from cameras he secretly installed throughout his house 3 days earlier. His 5-year-old twins, Elijah and Naomi, have been diagnosed with selective mutism, a severe anxiety disorder that's left them silent since age 3 despite normal speech development before that. They communicate through gestures and occasional nods, and countless therapists have made minimal progress. Marcus hired Keisha Williams 6 months ago, a 38-year-old nanny with stellar references, but no formal credentials beyond 10 years of childcare experience. Lately, the twins have seemed different when he comes home, happier, more animated, and Marcus's ex-wife planted a seed of paranoia during their last contentious phone call. How well do you actually know this woman? What's she doing with them all day? So Marcus installed the cameras without telling anyone. Expensive hidden units in the playroom, kitchen, and living areas. Now he's watching footage from yesterday, fast-forwarding through breakfast and morning routines, looking for anything inappropriate or concerning. What he sees instead stops him cold. At 9:45 a.m., Keisha sits on the floor with Elijah and Naomi, and she's signing to them. American Sign Language, fluid and expressive, her hands moving with practiced grace. The twins are signing back, their small hands forming deliberate shapes, their faces lit with concentration and joy. This conversation in silence lasts 20 minutes, more communication than Marcus has seen from his children in 2 years. He rewinds and watches again, his mind racing. Neither he nor his ex-wife authorized sign language instruction. The children's therapist specifically recommended against it, arguing it might become a crutch preventing verbal speech development. Marcus immediately calls Dr. Jennifer Park, the developmental psychologist who's been treating the twins for 18 months. Did you know the nanny is teaching my children sign language? His tone is accusatory, but Dr. Park sounds genuinely surprised. No, I didn't authorize that. Though I have to say, Marcus, the research on selective mutism and alternative communication methods has evolved. The old thinking was that providing nonverbal options would eliminate motivation to speak. Current research suggests the opposite, that reducing communication anxiety through any method often helps children eventually develop verbal speech because they're not constantly stressed about being unable to express themselves. Marcus isn't interested in research justifications. She went behind my back and implemented a treatment without consulting anyone. That's a violation of trust. Dr. Park is quiet for a moment before responding. Perhaps, or perhaps she recognized your children needed a way to communicate and gave them one. When's the last time you had a real conversation with them, Marcus? The question lands like a punch because Marcus knows the answer. Never. He's never had a real conversation with Elijah and Naomi, not since they stopped speaking. He talks at them. How was your day? Met with shrugs. What do you want for dinner? Answered with pointing. But there's no exchange of ideas, no sharing of thoughts or feelings, no actual dialogue. He's been so focused on fixing their condition, on shuttling them to therapists and specialists, that he's accepted their silence as a temporary problem to be solved rather than a communication barrier to be bridged. Keisha, apparently, made a different choice. She decided to meet them where they were instead of waiting for them to reach where everyone else wanted them to be. Marcus watches more footage over the following hours, days of recordings that paint a picture completely different from what he'd feared. Keisha teaches the twins signs for emotions: happy, sad, angry, scared, and they use them immediately, finally able to express feelings they've been holding silently for years. She signs questions about their preferences, their fears, their interests, and they respond with an eagerness Marcus has never witnessed. During snack time, Naomi signs that she doesn't like strawberries but has been eating them anyway, and Keisha immediately switches to offering grapes. Such a small thing, but it's a moment of agency the child hasn't had, the ability to express a preference and be heard. Elijah signs that he's scared of the dark and has nightmares about monsters. Keisha doesn't dismiss this. She signs back a conversation about fear, about how everyone is scared sometimes, and together they create a sign for brave that Elijah can use when he's frightened. One scene particularly devastates Marcus. It's late afternoon, and Keisha is reading a story while signing the words. Naomi suddenly puts down her toy and signs a question. Marcus doesn't know enough ASL to understand, but he sees Keisha's expression shift to something tender and sad. She signs a lengthy response, and Naomi starts crying silently, the way the twins have learned to cry without making sound. Keisha pulls her into a hug and keeps signing over Naomi's shoulder. Reassurance, comfort, love expressed through hands instead of words. Marcus finds himself crying too, there in his office, because he realizes his daughter just asked a question important enough to make her cry, and he has no idea what it was. He's been in the same house as his children for years, but completely unable to access their inner lives. Marcus makes a decision he doesn't fully understand himself. Instead of confronting Keisha or firing her for overstepping, he enrolls in an intensive American Sign Language course that meets 4 evenings per week. He tells Keisha he'll be home later on those nights, working on a project, but he doesn't mention what he's actually doing. Learning ASL as an adult is humbling. His hands feel clumsy, the grammar is completely different from English, and he makes countless mistakes. But he persists with an intensity he usually reserves for business problems. His instructor, a deaf woman named Claire Martinez, asks why he's learning. Marcus explains about his twins, about the nanny teaching them without permission, about his guilt at being unable to communicate with his own children. Claire's response is blunt. So instead of being angry that someone gave your children language, you're finally learning it yourself. Better late than never. But those kids have needed you to meet them halfway for a long time. After 6 weeks of intensive study, Marcus's signing is still rough but functional. One Saturday morning, when Keisha has the day off, Marcus enters the playroom where Elijah and Naomi are building with blocks. He sits on the floor, something he rarely does, usually staying at adult height while they play, and he signs clumsily, "Good morning. Can we talk?" Both children freeze, staring at him with wide eyes. Naomi looks toward the doorway, as if expecting Keisha to appear. Marcus understands the implication. Signing is their special thing with Keisha, not with him. He signs again, making deliberate eye contact. "I'm learning. I want to talk with you. I'm sorry it took me so long." Elijah's hands move slowly, testing whether this is real. "You know signs?" Marcus nods and responds, "Little bit. Learning more. You teach me." What follows is the first real conversation Marcus has had with his children in over 2 years. They're patient with his mistakes, and gradually they begin correcting his hand shapes, showing him more signs, telling him about their days and their feelings and their fears. Naomi finally asks the question she'd signed to Keisha in the footage, the one that made her cry. "Why don't you talk to us anymore?" Marcus's hands shake as he signs back. "I never stopped wanting to talk to you. I just didn't know how when you stopped using words. I should have learned this sooner. I'm sorry." Both twins start crying, and so does Marcus, and they have their first family hug in months that feels like actual connection instead of obligation. Over dinner that night, Marcus asks them about Keisha, signing his questions. They sign enthusiastically about how she teaches them, how she never gets frustrated when they can't express something, how she learned their favorite foods and activities by asking instead of assuming. Marcus signs, "Do you want to keep learning sign language?" Both children nod vigorously. "Do you think you'll talk with words again someday?" Elijah signs, "Maybe. Not ready yet." Naomi adds, "Scared to try. What if words don't work?" Marcus realizes his children aren't refusing to speak out of stubbornness or defiance. They're terrified that if they try to speak and can't, or if they're not understood, it will confirm their worst fears about themselves. Sign language hasn't prevented verbal speech development. It's given them a safe way to communicate while they build the confidence that might eventually lead back to speaking. Monday morning, Marcus calls Keisha into his office before the twins wake up. She enters nervously, clearly expecting termination. Marcus doesn't make her wait. "I know you've been teaching the twins ASL. I've seen the footage from the cameras I installed." Keisha's face falls. But before she can apologize or defend herself, Marcus continues. I also learned sign language myself, so I could communicate with my own children, something I should have done 2 years ago. You gave them something I failed to give them, a voice. I'm not firing you. I'm asking if you'll help me understand what they need, really need, beyond what the therapists say or what I think should work. Keisha's relief is visible, but she meets his eyes steadily. Mr. Ashford, the therapists aren't wrong that the goal is eventual verbal speech. But your kids have been living in silence, unable to express basic needs and feelings for over 2 years. That's trauma. They needed a bridge, and I gave them one. I'm sorry I didn't ask permission, but I'm not sorry I did it. Marcus nods slowly. I understand. And I'm grateful, even if I reacted with suspicion first. But I need to know, what did Naomi ask you that day? The question that made her cry? Keisha hesitates, then signs as she speaks. She asked if the reason you don't talk to them anymore is because they're broken and you don't love broken things. Marcus feels like he's been physically struck. What did you tell her? Keisha's voice is gentle but firm. I told her that she's not broken, that her father loves her very much, but that sometimes adults get scared and don't know how to show love when things are hard. I told her you were trying your best, even if it didn't feel like enough. I hope I wasn't overstepping, but they needed to hear that. Marcus has to sit down, overwhelmed by the realization that his children have spent years thinking his emotional distance was rejection rather than helplessness. The changes in the Ashford household are gradual but profound. Marcus arranges for Dr. Park to consult with an ASL specialist who works with selective mutism cases. Together, they develop a treatment plan that incorporates signing as a legitimate communication tool rather than a prohibited shortcut. Marcus's ex-wife, initially skeptical, agrees to learn basic signs after witnessing a video call where the twins enthusiastically signed to their father about their day. Family therapy sessions now include a signing interpreter, allowing Elijah and Naomi to participate fully for the first time. And slowly, very slowly, the twins begin vocalizing again. Not full sentences yet, but sounds that accompany their signs, practicing using their voices in low-pressure contexts. 8 months after Marcus discovered Keisha's secret, Elijah speaks his first complete sentence in over 2 years. They're in the garden, and Elijah is signing about a butterfly when suddenly he says aloud, "Look, Dad, it's yellow." His voice is rusty from disuse, but clear. Marcus drops to his knees, signing and speaking simultaneously. I see it. It's beautiful. Naomi, watching this breakthrough, tries her own voice. Pretty. Just one word, but it's a word chosen freely rather than forced by adult expectations. Both children are smiling, proud of themselves, but not pressured. They know they can return to signing if speaking becomes too stressful, which paradoxically makes speaking less frightening. In a subsequent interview with a parenting podcast about his experience, Marcus reflects, I thought installing cameras would protect my children from a threat. Instead, they revealed I was the threat, not through abuse or neglect in the traditional sense, but through my inability to meet them where they were. I wanted to fix them so badly that I forgot to just be with them. Keisha taught me that communication isn't just verbal, that love requires flexibility, and that sometimes the people we hire to care for our children see them more clearly than we do because they're not carrying our fears and expectations. The host asks about trust, about how he reconciled Keisha going behind his back. Marcus's answer is thoughtful. She didn't go behind my back to harm my children. She went around a system that wasn't working to help them. Should she have advocated more directly? Maybe. But I also have to acknowledge I'd created an environment where she might have feared I'd reject the idea. So she just did what she knew was right. That's not ideal, but it's also a person prioritizing children's needs over job security. I can't be too angry about that, especially when she was right. So what's the lesson here? It's not just about one nanny's unauthorized teaching method or one father's surveillance cameras. It's about how easily we can become so focused on the destination, fixing, curing, normalizing, that we forget about the journey and the humans experiencing it. Marcus wanted his twins to speak so desperately that he couldn't see they were already trying to communicate, just not in the way he expected. Keisha saw children who needed language and gave them one, not as a permanent solution, but as a bridge to wherever they'd eventually go. And in doing so, she forced Marcus to confront his own limitations as a parent and grow past them. If this story resonated with you, Hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had someone see a solution you'd been missing? Subscribe for more stories about unexpected breakthroughs and the courage it takes to challenge conventional approaches when they're not working. Because sometimes the thing that shocks you isn't wrongdoing. It's realizing someone loved your children enough to take a risk you were too afraid to take.